a very specific reason that it was a surprise raid and it was conducted at that time, at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, it was a surprise raid. We conducted it in the early hours of the morning because we were targeting 3 cells with 3 offenders being the primary targets. These were communal cells, so we had to get a full strength of members of the EST and also get a force multiplier from the South African Police Service.
So, Commissioner, what were some of the things that were found? I mean, we've got a list of, the obvious things, cell phones, TVs, or maybe a TV is not that obvious, but what are some of the other things that sort of caught your attention that were found during this raid?
We found cell phones, we found sharp objects, but what stands out is the amount of more than 4,000 rands that we were able to confiscate. Well, the television sets that were in the cells are television sets that the offenders would have applied for permission to have. We checked and were able to clear those. As I did indicate in other interviews, that offenders are allowed to have television sets because that's one of the ways of linking them with the outside world, preparing them to be integrated back into the society and also allowing them to get access to educational programs that are broadcast, including, of course, allowing them to follow the news.
So they are, in some cases, allowed to have TV sets?
They are, in some cases, allowed to have TV sets, and it has to do with the classification of an offender with regards to the behavior of the offender and also the attendance, consistency of the offender in attending rehabilitation and corrections programs.
I see in the statement from Correctional Services as well, there's a particular attention that's paid to inmates that are housed in corners of the prison. Why is that, Commissioner?
Well, the inmates that are housed in corners of the prison, they are housed there for a number of reasons. One of those is that those would be inmates that have more influence in terms of what happens or takes place in the cell. The other reason being that these are actually offenders that we identify as runners. They are the ones that are links between the contrabands that are smuggled into correctional facilities and the route that these contrabands then are taken through as they move around the correctional facility. The third reason being that in most cases, these are offenders that are actually members of the gangs. Hence, we were targeting, in those 3 cells, I indicated that we had 3 specific offenders that we were targeting, that we were collecting information about their activities for quite some time. So this was a clear targeted raid, and we are happy with the outcomes because we were able to get exactly what the information that we had at our disposal pointed to us.
Just in terms of the contraband that was confiscated during the raid, I don't see any mention of any drugs that were found.
Yes, we did not find the drugs. As I indicated, we found the money, which is an indication that there is some trading that is happening. As I indicated, we targeted the 3 cells. We're now going to go on a full-scale search because the cells obviously are in close proximity to each other, and sometimes offenders are able to move contrabands from one cell to the other. So now we are going to go on a clean sweep of the facility because we suspect that those movements happened as we were busy searching other cells.
So in terms of who will be held accountable, there's often the notion that, you know, what happens behind the prison bars insofar as smuggling various goods in and out of prison, running criminal gangs from inside the prison, that none of that will be possible without the help of correctional services officials. Are you getting any kind of indication, particularly at St. Albans prison in Gqeberha, that that has been the case?
That has been the case. I've indicated that the raid was as a result of information that we've been collecting over time. In fact, this raid is my second visit here in St. Albans in 3 weeks. I came first to crystallize the information at our disposal, and now we did this raid. We have identified those officials that are with those that smuggle contrabands, and we're going to proceed on them.
And in terms of, you know, the criminal syndicates that you talk about in your statement, Commissioner, you know, these raids are obviously part of trying to crack down on criminal syndicates in prisons. How much progress are we making on that score? And do you believe that it is possible to eradicate these criminal syndicates in prisons?
Yes, it is possible to eradicate the syndicates. The work that we did today contributes to that. You start first by disrupting their activities, you grind their activities to a halt. In the process, you would have identified those that are smugglers, those that are distributors, and you go back to the source. Now it would be the source outside a correctional facility setting in localities there. And that's why we work with the South African Police Service. Our work here links directly into the operations that the South African Police Service is running throughout the country, Operation Shanyela and other operations, because we believe that we can also make a contribution in ensuring that we deal with crime from its source. So yes, it's not an easy task, but it's a task that we are equal to. It's a task that we wake up to on a daily basis and ensure that we make a meaningful contribution.